Hello everyone, welcome to Mr. Simplifies Tutorials. In this tutorial, we'll simplify the GE matrix for you and look at 3 complete examples to watch it in play. Now, decision makers in very large businesses often have too many conflicting priorities or business units to juggle. The term Strategic Business Unit or SBU refers to a collection of products, a collection of product lines, or similar services, or can refer to an entire brand. Now, large organizations usually have a number of SBUs, and not every SBU needs to be prioritized at all times. You see, time and other resources are always limited. It can therefore actually be counterproductive to prioritize the wrong business unit and lose focus from the ones that are actually potentially profitable for the organization. The GE matrix can help you understand which business units to prioritize at any given point in time and thereby ensure optimal resource utilization. It is actually an extension of or an improvement to the Boston matrix or BCG matrix, which many of you might be aware of. If you aren't aware of the BCG matrix, there's a popular older tutorial on this channel which I'll link to. Let's look into the overall matrix and then understand its components and usage. We'll then look at some examples. The GE matrix is also called the 9-box matrix or the 9-box grid for obvious reasons. To use the matrix, you need to plot your strategic business units into one of the 9 grids of the matrix. Business units can, however, also fall between the multiple boxes in the grid. As you can see, the matrix has an x-axis and a y-axis. Let's look at these to begin with. We start with the y-axis, which is industry attractiveness. This is a measure of how easy or difficult it is to be successful in the market at the present time. The higher on the axis the SBU is, the more profitable the SBU is slated to be. When it comes to gauging market attractiveness, here are some ways to get a measure of the same for the SBUs. You can run a PESTEL analysis to understand the political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental factors influencing the market at the current time. You can deploy the Porter's 5 forces model to understand factors like competitive rivalry, power of buyers and suppliers in the marketplace, the threat of new entrants, and the threat of substitution. You can analyze the market growth rate and the growth projection over a period of time. A good way to get this data would be from industry analyst reports. A good practice here is to finalize the most relevant factors from this analysis, assign weightages or points to each factor, and then assign points to each SBU accordingly. This analysis should help you plot your SBUs on this axis. By the way, we do also have highly rated older tutorials covering PESTEL and Porter's 5 forces in this channel. I'll provide links to those in the description. Let's move on to the x-axis, which is business unit strength. This is a measure of how effective or profitable your current business units are in the market at the present time. This measure can obviously be subjective. Here are some of the ways of evaluating this. You can look at the rate of growth in comparison to your competitors. You can look at market perception for your SBUs, which can come out of analyst reports and market reviews of the products or services in the SBUs. You can look at sales win to loss ratios. You can look at bottom line profitabilities of the SBUs. You can look at brand value or reputation, but these aren't easy to measure quantitatively. You can then provide weightages to each factor and mark your SBUs to plot them on the axis. Once the ratings are confirmed, the SBUs will be populated in one of the 9 areas represented by blocks in the matrix, or sometimes in the middle of a couple of blocks. As you can see, there are 3 distinct types of blocks in the matrix. Blocks labeled Grow or Invest are the ones to be considered for growing your investment. These are the SBUs that are highly placed in an attractive industry. Blocks labeled Hold are the ones which you should go steady with. These are not bad enough to reduce focus from, but aren't good enough to invest more than you currently do. These are steady players at the current point. Blocks labeled harvest or divest are the ones for which further investment should be largely reduced or stopped entirely. In an ideal world, these business units should be closed to increase focus and investments on SBUs that are likely to support the business objectives better. An important thing to note is that businesses that wish to continue growing need to do a GE matrix analysis every few years. An SBU that was a shining star at any point in time could become a liability in a matter of years. Decisions will need to be made based on the current standing of an SBU and its trend going forward, and not on historic patterns. Now let's look at examples to see the GE matrix in play. The first example is for the Internet Explorer, our favorite browser. Reports suggest that Internet Explorer's market share stood at around 93% back in 2003. At this point in time, IE would feature in the grow part of the matrix. This dominance continued for a few years owing to how attractive the market was. But if we move forward to 2010, the reported market share was around 59%, nudging it down to the hold section of the matrix. But the insurgence of other browsers like Chrome, Safari, and Firefox meant that the market share kept declining and IE sliding towards the harvest section of the matrix. This eventually led to Microsoft releasing the final version of IE in 2013, releasing a new browser in 2015, and eventually retiring IE completely in 2022. The next example is the golf division of Adidas. Although Adidas's footwear division, including golf footwear, features in the grow section due to its industry attractiveness, the story is different when it comes to Adidas's golf equipment business. Much like Internet Explorer, there are external factors in play, including an overall drop in people playing golf in America, which is the biggest market for golf. As the golf equipment division slipped into the harvest section of the matrix, Adidas actually decided to sell it and focus more on the shoes and shirts division. Interestingly, both Adidas and Nike decided to exit the golf equipment divisions in 2016 and focus on other sports. We can clearly see how the SBU moved over the years, leading to their eventual closure. This indicates that despite the quality and brand recognition of products being high, industry attractiveness can play a huge role in how your SBUs perform. A positive growth example has to be Netflix's streaming service, which actually accounted for a tiny portion of its overall business back in 2007. The primary business model back then was still DVD rentals. In 2010, we saw the closure of Netflix's biggest competitor, Blockbuster, and Netflix's fortunes started multiplying. Coupled with the increase in internet speeds and stability and a change in consumer preferences, Netflix's streaming services took off massively. As of 2025, they have more than 300 million subscribers. Here, we can see a positive movement in the GE matrix for this example. Now that we've gone through some useful real-life examples, let's look at the limitations of the GE matrix. Oversimplistic. In a real-world business, there are multiple SBUs. The matrix doesn't do anything in terms of differentiating the types of SBUs. It basically treats every product, project, or SBU as the same, which is oversimplification. Subjectivity. Despite the analysis conducted, there is a high reliance here on subjective estimations of market attractiveness. This is definitely a shortcoming. Suitability. Now, certain industries tend to be very volatile. Using the GE matrix for rapidly changing industries would involve constantly analyzing industry trends, and this always involves a lot of time and costs. So these are some of the many limitations of the GE matrix. And that is all we had for this tutorial. I hope this was beneficial for you, the examples were helpful, and I thank you for sticking to the end of this tutorial. And as always, thank you very much for watching all the tutorials in this channel. And if you're new here, please like, please subscribe, please share, and please take very good care of your own self. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.